So title is the study of moral calculus, changing morality of the 7 deadly sins between Dante's Poetry and 7. The first chapter is the logarithm function and morality. The quote, we can ignore even pleasure, but the pain insists upon being attended to. God whispered to us in our pleasures, we got conscious, but shout in our pain. It is his megaphone to drive the death toll. The famous quote from Lewis. Says, tackling the problem of pain is accompanying a question of theodicy. Civilization uses megaphone and as an appropriate metaphor for vocal language of God and the hearing impairment of his sinful people. Lewis teaches that God changes his volume from whisper to God megaphone according to our state of sinfulness and the condition we are in. By whisper, we mean voicing our opinions in a barely audible manner to a listener for the sake of secrecy. But whisper can be easily drawn by a small ambient sound like the chirping of a bird, for instance. A megaphone has something transhuman about it. It's a machine to extend the limit of human vocal cord and a prosthetic extension of our voice. The machine, although one of the ambient noise and helping to convey a message to recipient, is close to impossible to measure evenly the spectrum of sound from phrasal whisper to the thundering of the megaphone, because the sound of the megaphone is exponential to that of a whisper. However, the mathematicians found a way to measure the exponential growth between two extremities: sound approaching the lowest human audible frequency and exploding sound our eardrum cannot tolerate, that being the logarithm function. Before the development of the modern computerized calculation, logarithms were an indispensable mathematical tool, but today only are useful in terms of measuring natural phenomena such as sound and earthquakes. The measurement of sound from a silent to loudness is not even processed. The sound measuring unit, the decibel, trace the curve of exponential growth in which the initial stage is ignorable in terms of volume, but each stage increases to the power of the stage number. There's two graphs here. A similar type of scale, the logarithmic scale employing logarithmic function is also used to measure the size of the earthquake, the magnitude, the scale of measuring the seismic intensities. Earthquakes are a symbol of divine punishment in many mythological narratives, as well as in the Bible. The divine verses and divine punishments change according to the path delineated by the exponential curve, the logarithm function. Are such theological appropriations of mathematical function preposterous and far-fetched? It appears to be on the surface level. However, at the deeper level, unexpected correlation between the human beings as embodied ethical, therefore theological subject and the world they live in can be revealed. Hearing and the movement, the cognitive process taking place between the world and sensory stimuli and as neural network. With the development of cybernetics, we are come to understand the dynamic mechanisms of our obtaining sensory information out of the background noises. Unlike the information machines, our sensory organs get easily tired, and like sensing ranges are limited, incomparably so when compared to the measuring and preceding machine. In turn, the sophisticated adjustment to adapt themselves to varying noises. When the noise level is low, it's only with a maximum receptiveness that sensory organ can discern the information of the high-level background noise. In this condition, the correlation between the information and the background noise is not linear, but bent like the exponential curve in the graph above. If the curve crosses some threshold-like decibel of 50 above, the resulting change is qualitatively different from those in the dull curve. An explosion of a nuclear weapon from an affectionate whisper, a continental collision from a gentle touch of a lover's fingertip. The logarithmic equation explains the mechanism by which we communicate with our environment and change our reaction to it. This mechanism explains the information flow from a stimulus to our perception, in turn to our reaction, continually with the accompanying application according to size of the stimulus in correlation with the noise around it. This also explains our moral attitude, as Antonio Damasio pointed out. Our emotions stem from biological reactions to the environment, but the reception of good and bad feelings at the gut level build a core emotional base which feeds more sophisticated feelings at the cerebrospinal level into primitive morality at the cerebral level. Therefore, it can be assumed that our ethical subjectivity is based on emotions of biological origin. How that the morality that is boxed in the biological container of a bodily ethical subjectivity suffer any change. Paul Bloom suggested two hypotheses only to judge them incompetent in providing a comprehensive understanding of the change. The first one presumes that morality evolves as humans extend their contact with others. This contact hypothesis, however, fails to answer the question of abstract neighborhood humans have never seen or met in person. The other hypothesis claims that our morality is adjusted through the power of the unique human characteristic, language, and narrative. The elaborate persuasion of narratives has proved to be effective in shaping human moral attitude, as can be witnessed in the likes of Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin and Peter Singer's Animal Liberation. And the effect they have had, however, as Bloom clarified, language and narratives can have a very corrosive effect on morality, the degradation of which we witnessed in the case of Nazi propaganda. Second chapter, narrative topology and morality is an isotopy and a heterotopy. It is from the standpoint of the second hypothesis, the power of narrative, and their elaborate persuasion, that this paper aims to prove the changes in moral representation from the late Middle Ages to the present, based on narratives of medieval seven deadly sins. However, this research does not presume very narrative are primal causal link to transformation that can change our attitude, as some claim that Thomas Paine's common sense did for the American Revolution. Whether we can discern a general propensity for moral change in different representations of the same narrative. I like to show the change in terms of space and temporal progress in which different morality plays out. For this spatial understanding, I will extract the geometrical or specifically political ideas from the Yang Bergson, the two sources in morality and religion, whose concept is open and closed. Morality is influenced evolutionary morality. Bergson coined the term open society, popularized later by Karl Popper, which also designated the open system of moral law or religion. It was with the open system that he contrasts the closed system in which a morality or religion based on the blind pursuit of utilitarianism and the underlying instinct for survival, individual or communal. It was like a closed circuit or loop where a moral subject is obliged repeatedly follow the biased track of the rhythm of the instinctive survival machine, out of which the subject is not allowed to escape. The open system, on the other hand, does not claim any boundary to show up its identity, or is it chained to the survival instinct. It will the help of this openness that morals can leave the two-dimensional flatland of the so-called freedom and right to another level of aspirational morality. As an example moral agent like a saint, not in the structure or system of morality, can show the other moral agent a way to aspire to the expanding open morality. It should be duly admitted that open society arrived at a very long period of a closed society, the historical role of which was limited in the primitive world of instinctive survival. However, as Bergson attests, the two apparently opposing morality are not always exclusive in our history. In other words, they do not have to be ordered in an evolutionary timeline. Though I should be aware of the danger of making hasty historical generalizations, while I do not posit that our society suffers a regression to the closed society of the caveman survival instinct. I like to go against the dogmatic grain of evolutionary morality from the Enlightenment perspective. I will argue instead the artistic imagination represents the respective moral attitudes of their own time in terms of spatial delineations and look for ways different from a dogmatic history of morality. My paper will claim that the spatial or topological rendering of moral imagination, the seven deadly sins in Dante's Purgatory, is more open than that of the seven deadly sins in David Fincher's seven-hour contemporary apocalyptic narrative and an equivalent in Dante's Divine Comedy. This openness is apparently contrary to generally perceived characteristics of moral progress, it will also be contended that the change in our society from open to closed follows the curve of liberating function in terms of development of capitalism, the signature of which is a modern day city and the allegorical representation in urban noir film. After its birth, capitalism, which is revived even worse, enhanced the single most powerful instinct, that of survival, has grown hand in hand with the growth of urban areas or cities whose centripetal force attends to fencing all the capitalistic resources, creating an enclosure with the barriers all around. The visual cityscape of capitalism, a product of the American film industry as well, created space of the enclosure within which a rebel against the as capitalistic system can be easily contained. Some critic like the David Harvey posit the impossibility of the rebel cities, but the topological representation films noir has all the chances of something revolutionary related, in turn rendering cities a homogeneous places of capitalistic quantification. That is, everything can be measured in terms of monetary units. That is why Henri Lefebvre terms isotopy, where all the differences are erased. Here, the cities of capitalism exist a vague mythical space of survival without details or distinctions. In the cities of North Spice, the space itself innately contaminated by the scenes of capital. Double entendre activity here. It is always already contagious. The new space of the original scene makes resident sinners or culted without any hope for redemption by enclosing within them, within inescapable city. Seven space doesn't have anything outside itself. It is held with no route to purgatory or heaven. Dante's space of purgation introduced a place of differentiation, which nothing can be essentially static. A penitent, a pilgrim can allow to follow circular upward movement as a place of spiritual qualification. That is, everything has unique quality that registers reduction to the natural sameness. It is a place where the qualitative differences were imagined and created, that is where Lefebvre and Foucault named heterotopy. The third chapter, seven deadly scenes and the heterotopy in Dante's Purgatory. The seven deadly scenes were first enumerated by the Pope Gregory. The first was incorporated into the theological system by scholars like Thomas Aquinas to help guide and educate the laity as well as theologians. There are lechery, gluttony, avarice, sloth, wrath, and envy and pride. Allegory Dante had turned Aquinas' seven deadly scenes into literary masterpiece. For Dante, these things were personal matters. He explained the Purgatory, book 17, the scenes are alcanab amor in ordinatus. Even though there is some controversy about whether the rationale is Dante's or borrowed from the contemporary tradition, most of the generation shared not only the basic categorization of the scenes, along with the corresponding penitential manual, but also nature of the concept of scene. And rough simplification, Dante's ideas of the scenes come to a mere matter of balancing what anyone can achieve by enforcing themselves to do it. Everything good is simple stems from love, not in an intensive love lasts more than what is right. Measure made to lead to scene. It is implied that personal work can help a penitent recover a balanced state away from the scene of the excessive love of self that is against God and their fellow citizens. For Dante, the seven deadly sins are not mortal but forgivable, as if placing them in purgatory that the Inferno corroborate. The seven deadly sins, as a unit idea, do not apply to sinner in Inferno because they do not show that a solid unit there. Dante describes the deadly sin, there are the contrapposto at the independent unit of sins in purgatory. The medieval invention of purgatory as a sphere of the penance and the fault line between spiritual life, material and social life allowed the sinner not only to embrace the liberating discourse of the hamartiology against the original scene. Medieval theologian induced sinners at the seat of the peccatium originale with the divine gift to the heart of thing. Rationally, they act morally even in their simple state. but also to have the ethical and theological agency to their redemptive penance, sometimes dangerous close to Pelagianism. The sinners and servants are traces that the sin can voluntarily will their departure from the circle when their deadly sins were cleansed by their willing contra-passive suffering. On the grim landscape of the purgatory, there lies the idea of a sinner who had the rational and moral power to work toward your salvation with the fear and trembling from the Bible. This idea may sound confusing because our bias against readable sinner that they must have been shackled by the deadly nature of sin. As Michael Palencia wrote, that points out, however deadly or mortal, the important adjective that qualifies sin with the irremediable character came into use after 1400, and the capital of the original qualifier from Latin that has been used before deadly does not imply any deadliness of felony, but refers to its importance in the pharmacological hierarchy, like the similar terms, the primary, chief, or cardinal. Capital work like a comprehensive heading or categorical note and to systematically include scenes of kind. The capital scene in the circle on the terrace of purgatory should be understood as those who are committed in terms of conscious or intentional transgression of recognized moral law, and therefore the remittance of which it has to be each sinner's responsibility, communal as well as individual. The pilgrim on the sprawling terrace of seven deadly sins is responsible for his or her sins as much to believe we are in an existential condition of life. Thus, the pilgrim's responsibility also entails the potential freedom because he or she is originally free to commit sins or not to. They are situated in a place of radical openness. Purgatory stays as an open realm of tenderest, subtlest, most human section of the Kanti sayers, in which the pilgrims of seven deadly sins are progressed toward a different realm of the immortality and light, namely heaven. It is a space of becoming not what they are essentially are, but what they are will be, where will their way to transformation unknown given to them. This geographic contour is also reflected in the poetic space. The structure of purgatory overlines the divine command was moving into to build the extremely intricate architecture of their imagination. Like a beautiful Gothic cathedral made of balanced proportions, each line is interlinked to compose a stanza, then a canto, and a book. It is through the interlocking lines that reader cannot perceive the forward movement form. The terms of rima form of Dante's poem with the consecutive lines of intertwining rhymes keeps moving onward until it reaches a boundary, not to close the one, but open it up to the another space. The lines from the first canto appear to show how poetic the movement to chain rhymes have pushed forward the spiritual elevation of sinners. So let's skip here. This open passageway flowing from the poetic movement, unlike the closed city of hell, provides sinners with a space, a heterotopy, in which each one dreams of his or own redemptive escape. It is in the open pathway the Cato, who should be placed in hell for his suicide, his life before Christ, has a dream of redemption as a gatekeeper of purgatory, as the once did for the Roman Republic. This understanding scene of cities contributes a perspective in its existential condition of the sin deprived the modern sinners of their remission agency, which is, could work just because the conception intentionally and the consequent responsibility about the committed sin, the arrival of the Protestantism and the concomitant disappearance of purgatory did not erase the concept of sin based on intentionality and responsibility in England. So the following pages describe how to read this kind of thing changes over Enlightenment period. So I will go over it next chapter. Is the page number 9. The chapter title is 7 Deadly Sin in Isotopy in 7. This version of original sin I gave more substantial under capitalism, which is the stoked the desire of every man since the first primitive sign of capitalist accumulation. More concrete image of sin was obtained through the development of the cinematography Capitalism as an ideology or invisible attempt to systemize the world spawned the powerful illusion of liberalism, a belief in the freedom of individuals in the system. Despite this liberal appearance, however, it indulges in self-justification of closure. Capitalism as with the enlightenment go with the dialectical development that is only possible with the erasure of the negativity or of what remains after sublimation process. This sublimation comes with transcendentality, or that is ironically so imminent and universal like an air in our daily life that we rarely encounter as negativity. To keep it slick front, capitalism has to dump the refuse of the dialectic with the dark side of the ideology. Therefore, as a solution to contaminating dialectics and see the state of things as an world that they were or thing in itself as admonishes us to accept the negative place we live in, it must be considered that the new medium of relation from technological development has helped to strip away the fake universality of capitalism and reveal what it wants to hide from. Film, a representative medium of 20th century technology, has been able to show what our eyes blinded by ideology cannot perceive by exposing the settings we are surreptitiously forced to live in. Walter Benjamin's insight of the epistemological renovation as a result of photography help us to understand the unexpected perspective a film can guide our eyes to. I will skip this book here and move to the next paragraph. While photography can capture images individual to our eyes, a film can portray the invisible itself. Your films, especially akin to Louis' metaphor, zoom out the individual in an ever-expanding background, which escape our natural vision. The cities once invisible towards stage and the main settings, without the help of the audience imagination. Your film expresses a negative refuse in the quotidian violence and the criminality of the American life, the critiques of American capitalism. Many film noirs in the Hollywood depict American cities as a simple urban area where the crime-ridden district cannot be separated from the city dwelling sinners. The cities resemble Sin City, Frank Miller's noir comic film adaptation, in which most of the characters actually criminal at the Sin City of money. Crime might be an allegory of a world full of capitalist desires where sins are rampant, mere residence itself turned city dwellers and sinners. According to Fiedler Leslie, Dante's Inferno is not his period to a powerful model and metaphor for modern city-like literature and film. It is Dante's walled city of hell, instead of open space like heaven that is compared to the boundless ocean or the purity that is compared to the lofty mountain. That mythicized the modern city. This mythicized city of hell has influenced the representation of the city in literature from works of late Middle Ages through those of the Renaissance to those 19th century in the contemporary literature. Seven is heavily indebted to Dante's Divine Comedy, especially its conception of hell. The screenwriter Seven, the Andrew Walker, in borrowing his material from some medieval and early modern writing, including Aquinas, Dante, Chaucer, Shakespeare, and Milton. We find them in the criminal scenes and library scenes. Follow the general structure of Dante's poem. Soon, I'll skip this over. It's a very summary of the movie here. So let's move to page number 11 here. The first sentence of the page. The most ironic thing of the seven in terms of narrative, seven deadly sins in their placement in not in purgatory. The original place of seven deadly sins as a unique idea. When Somerset gives a Milner reference in investigative clues with the classics known for their representation of 70 days, he recommends reading this refers Dante's purgatory, not hell. The displacements of the same point of the impossibility of the penitential space on our capitalistic city deprived of theological openness. We no longer have the redemptive open plate like purgatory. The seven deadly sins crawl in within the holy state of the seven takes on claustrophobic characteristics different from that of Dante's purgatory or Chaucer's Parson Tale, where the penitence is available from informs the equivalent virtue for those who want to cleanse out of their sins. So let's rightly go to our conclusion here. I'm sorry for the quick reading. So conclusion here, we believe that page number 12. We believe that we live in a world many of the insidious or moral agents that allow us to take responsibility for committed wrongdoing, their penal institution with corrective power will restore that moral agency. That was not so in the Middle Ages. The movie Seven demystifies this belief by telling the story of everybody being a sinner because of their residency in a city. This paper traced a line of change from medieval sinner Dante's character who has a hope of deliverance by willingly participating in the penitential process to the sinner in a modern post-capitalist succeeded as more like hell than purgatory, who by entering their forced to suffer everlasting despair, their abandonable whole view, who are entering the very famous quote. From the Reformation through the Enlightenment, Marxism, naturalism, traumatic world war, to pandemic capitalism, our hominological understanding of sin has undergone change. Following the curve, again, the archaeologist Mike Michel Foucault as a logarithm function, a plethora of narrative proofs from these discourses of what has affected the driver change of gentle code. It is in the early 20th century capitalism stood atop the world and ruled with the mass media, coupled with the traumatic realization of simple human nature. On the battlefield as well as the couch and the psychoanalysis their position, the mass media representation of capitalism elevated our awareness of sin and ethical subjectivity exponentially different from that of Dante. Our insensitivity colored by the naturalizing capitalism with the exponential peak, shocking and gory like a new film like Seven, overwhelming enough to awaken our spatial perception of morality like the Decibel 50 or the Magnitude 7. If the seven deadly sins are the anthropology through which we can understand who a medieval human being or sinner, 1/7 is radically different anthropology of the modern sinners that we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.